Things you must know before beginning Metta, loving kindness, meditation. There are things you must know before entering into Metta meditation practice. Without knowing what you need to know, you will not develop the sustained strength to continue practicing Metta meditation. There are two things you must understand. The first thing to know: the world has a pyramid structure. At the very bottom is hell, and above it, in ascending order, hungry ghosts, animals, humans, asuras, demigods, and celestial beings. This is the pyramid structure. It is the broad framework of rebirth, samsara. Viewed from the perspective of humans, most people do not have beautiful minds, do not seek the right Dhamma, and even when they find it, do not follow it. Their minds are consumed by endless desires, anger, and failure to cultivate wisdom. With every being they encounter, they only stir up greed, and with every being they meet, they commit selfish, harmful acts. Even when they wish to study the Dhamma, they lack the courage. The fear arises that going to a place of learning means going to the lowest position, and so they do not study at all. Instead, they cling only to the sweet taste of desire, remain enslaved to greed, and shamelessly commit harmful acts toward every being they encounter. However, because the mind automatically records and stores everything, these harmful acts become recorded within oneself, and at the moment of death, the mind of an animal or the mind of a hell being accompanies them. They fall into the animal realm or hell far too easily. It is a life in the animal realm of their own making, a life in hell of their own making. How pitiful! Another important thing is this: after wasting one's life in this way and falling to the lower realms, animals, hell, and so on, almost no one realizes that returning to the human realm is nearly impossible. How pitiful! Look up the parable of the blind turtle as taught by the Buddha. In the end, only a very small number of humans make the effort to seek the right Dhamma with a beautiful mind, and eventually find it, follow it step by step, and arrive in the heavenly realms. Therefore, during this precious human existence, this karmic opportunity, one must build a life of diligent study. Because if one falls into hell or the animal realm, the suffering there is so intense that study becomes completely impossible. One could say that practice is precisely the effort not to fall into such lower realms. The second thing to know and accept: learning correct Metta meditation. Correct Metta meditation has two elements: one is the sequence and content of Metta practice, and the other is the sustained effort to continue it. Once you learn the sequence and content, and effort continues steadily, you will become self-sufficient, and even if someone comes to create confusion, you will not be confused but will remain composed. Learning the sequence and content of Metta meditation is how you reduce the mistakes of confusion. The Buddha taught Metta meditation in a very detailed and clear process. But because people do not study it carefully, they practice alone or form groups, accumulating only their own mistaken knowledge or the mistaken knowledge of their group. Practicing Metta with wrong knowledge yields no effect whatsoever, and instead only fuels anger. This ultimately leads to a downward spiral without end, and Metta is shamelessly misused as a means of escaping bad situations. How pitiful! Around us there are people who have no connection to compassion themselves, yet constantly seek compassion from others. It would be wise to examine yourself carefully to see whether you fall into that category, and to seek the advice of a wise person. This will produce good results for yourself. Please be sure to learn the correct way to practice Metta meditation. The effects of Metta meditation. Let us first recognize the effects of Metta meditation. The reason for understanding its effects is that the practice only begins to take effect once those effects are recognized. If you do not know the effects of Metta meditation, practicing it will yield no benefit. The first effect is that the mind becomes peaceful. You live peacefully, because the mind is at ease, the body becomes at ease as well. A radiant expression accompanies a wholesome happiness. Falling asleep is peaceful, and waking is peaceful. With consistent practice, even death comes peacefully. This carries several important implications. It means that change in the mind brings physical change. Most people think that metta meditation merely brings psychological, emotional, and social stability. This is because they are ignorant of what metta really is. A person is an entity whose essential element is the mind. The mind is the driving force that produces results both inwardly and outwardly. This brings physical change to the body. Simultaneously, it brings change to the mental dimension as well. The most representative example of physical change is that one's complexion changes as metta matures. The mental change is that the mind becomes peaceful, and this becomes the breakthrough into the deeper inner dimensions that follow. From the perspective of livelihood and karma, one comes to leave harmful occupations. When the mind encounters living beings, harmful impulses no longer arise easily, which means harmful actions do not follow, and harmful results are ultimately not produced. Furthermore, awareness gradually matures, and throughout the entire practice of metta meditation, a practice of naturally returning to the fundamental mind arises on its own. This practice arises naturally and focuses on the mind. When focus on the mind occurs, what is called absorption, immersion, takes place. One could call it entering samadhi, or describe it as the gateway to jhana. This absorption is called immersion in Theravada Buddhism and Taesongulpayan, becoming one piece, in Mahayana Buddhism. Described in terms of what the mind relates to, the mind enters into the mind itself, and without the mind making itself its own object, the consciousness becomes pure awareness itself. What is known as the most important function of the mind, intuition, is strengthened. Subject and object dissolve and merge into one. You could also describe this as cultivating insight, or as training in prajnaparamita, the perfection of wisdom. Let me explain the state of absorption a bit further. I am writing this because most people do not speak of it openly. Most beings, including humans, fluctuate below the level of absorption, so they are largely unfamiliar with it. To truly know absorption, one must experience it. There are many methods of absorption. To give examples: breath meditation, anapanasati, wadu, questioning meditation, metta meditation, absorption into a kasina, visual object, contemplative samadhi, four elements meditation, and many other diverse methods. Among these methods, there are elements they share in common, as well as aspects unique to each. Explaining each one in detail would only be lengthy and potentially confusing. Here I will explain the method of absorption directly and to the point. Absorption is entered through 4 stages. Stage 1: keep the body still. Sitting is preferable as it is less conducive to drowsiness. Be comfortable and relaxed enough that you do not fall asleep. Stage 2: examine whether the mind is joyful, sorrowful, angry, delighted, or neutral, and wait for the emotions to settle. Stage 3: observe what thoughts are arising and bring them to stillness. Various thoughts may arise, but meet them with the attitude, "Ah, such a thought has arisen, it will soon pass." Wait with this in mind. Among these, the greatest barrier to absorption is anxious thoughts. Anxious thoughts can be minor or major. A representative example of a minor anxious thought is waiting for a call that hasn't come and feeling restless and uneasy. A major anxious thought is something like having committed a serious wrong and dreading when punishment will come. At this point, recite a mantra to yourself: what must pass will pass, and what must be received will be received in its own time. Right now, I will practice. Think this to yourself, and the anxiety will subside. Stage 4: enter into the method of absorption. For breath meditation, through the breath; for wadu, through the wadu; for metta, through the heart of compassion, and so on. Through these 4 stages, one enters absorption. Afterward, various things may occur. The image, nimitta, of compassion may appear, or it may not, but if you follow what you have learned, it is straightforward. When entering the 4 stages becomes deeply familiar, and metta becomes integrated into daily life, the image of compassion settles firmly in front of the chest, and a sense of centeredness arises there, as though something is present. The body will become supple and upright, and through the power of metta meditation, one will experience one-pointedness of mind, citta-ekagata. A separate video on practicing the 4 stages is planned. The second effect is that it reduces the arising of anger and resentment when encountering hostile or harmful people. Anger toward another is identical to anger toward oneself. It takes considerable time to truly and sincerely understand that anger toward another is in fact anger toward oneself. The mechanism by which the mind grasps an object and generates anger, beginning and returning to oneself, requires one to recognize that everything one encounters externally dwells within oneself. This cannot be understood by knowledge alone, it requires direct experience. That is why it takes time to realize that anger is directed toward oneself. There is no way other than consistent metta practice. In the end, metta meditation keeps you safe by ensuring that anger does not harm yourself. The third effect is that the karmic result of practicing metta creates the condition to meet and associate with like-minded, compassionate beings. One befriends celestial beings who share the same compassion, and true friends protect one another. Even after death, one is reborn in the celestial realm. How to cultivate and practice metta meditation. The first stage, the most important, is to direct metta toward yourself. The metta contemplation of stage 1 involves thinking as follows. I wish to be happy and do not wish for suffering. In the same way, other beings also wish to be happy and do not wish for suffering. Because I wish for other beings to be happy, I enter into my own happiness as the example and model. In terms of logical structure, this is a four-step syllogism. In terms of direction, it begins with oneself, moves outward, and returns to oneself. It is a turning from inward to outward, and back to inward. You might object, isn't practicing metta toward yourself a selfish act? And you might say, isn't metta about wishing all beings to be happy? That question, a hasty one, arises from not truly understanding metta, and it only torments you. To carry something you cannot handle and bring it to others, without verifying it within yourself, is a form of deception. It is a harmful act. In the Dhamma, there is a world of difference between seemingly similar expressions. One must be sensitive to subtle differences in wording. I wish to be happy together with others, this is the mind attaching to others as an external object, there is no true awareness, and metta does not arise at all. This must be clearly understood. First, one must find happiness within oneself. This is not selfishness. It can be understood as a preparatory stage for finding a deep state within oneself and then reflecting genuine happiness outward. It is to practice safely and firmly. The attitude of directing metta outward toward external objects is extremely dangerous. A simple example, if you are practicing loving-kindness toward a particular person and that person commits a harmful act, your own loving-kindness, cultivated through practice, is easily shattered. You begin to think that metta practice is futile, and you stop. Once you stop practicing, the only road left is the road of suffering. It is not simply for one's own happiness, it is to take oneself as the example and model for all beings to be happy, and to enter inward toward oneself. The direction of toward oneself must be clear for metta to practice well. Explaining the first stage of metta meditation. The first stage of metta meditation is to practice metta within daily life. In daily life, the mind automatically relates to many objects. When waking up, the mind relates to the morning. Upon rising, it immediately relates to the body. While preparing for the morning, it relates to the body, to cooking breakfast. Getting dressed, the mind relates to clothes, putting on socks, it relates to socks, putting on shoes, it relates to shoes. The mind continues to relate to things without stop. Going out to work is the same. The mind relates to the work, to the people encountered during work, to the tools of work, computers, hammers, saws, pens, mobile phones. When relating to all of this, metta disappears entirely and the mind churns about haphazardly. In this way, metta practice cannot be cultivated at all. Whenever there is a moment, you must do this. Because I wish that other beings, like myself, do not suffer and wish to be happy, I practice to ensure that I myself do not suffer and attain happiness. This mantra must be recited before and after waking, before and after going to work, before and after encountering the people you meet during the day. Recite. Because I wish that other beings, like myself, do not suffer and wish to be happy, I practice to ensure that I myself do not suffer and attain happiness. There may already be remnants of your own bad karma scattered around you. The people around you may be like this, or your circumstances, stained by lowly ways of life and desires, may be like this. There may be people tormenting you for no apparent reason, or things may not work out for reasons you cannot understand. At such times, it is important to put your surroundings in order. When your surroundings are properly ordered, they become your own doryang, a place of practice, and you can receive the power of sila, moral virtue. If a situation is truly unbearable, it is wise to leave it. Rather than merely leaving, an escape may be necessary. If you are a very sensitive person with low endurance, you may be unable to do anything at all. The same applies when the bad karma of your surroundings is very great. What is needed then is to put the mind down. Come down from your lofty position, accept that even being a janitor is fine, put the mind down, and then organize your situation or make your escape. Even at such times, recite. Because I wish that other beings, like myself, do not suffer and wish to be happy, I practice to ensure that I myself do not suffer and attain happiness. Gradually, purification occurs. The entering inward toward oneself is strengthened, and as you are drawn into deeper states, absorption takes place. Patience. What always accompanies metta. There is something that always comes together with metta meditation, patience. I will conclude the explanation of patience with the story of the elder Punna, Pua, and the Buddha. During the Buddha's lifetime, the story of elder Punna demonstrates what patience truly is. Sayutta Nikaya 35.88, the Pua Sutta. Elder Punna requested a brief teaching from the Buddha and said that he wished to practice alone in solitude. After the Buddha taught about clinging through the 6 sense bases, Punna said he intended to go to the region of Sunaparanta. The following exchange took place. Buddha, Punna, the people of Sunaparanta are fierce and rough. If they insult and mock you, what will you do? Punna, if they insult and mock me, I will think, these Sunaparanta people are civilized, truly civilized, for they have not struck me with their hands. That is what I will think, venerable sir. Buddha, but if they strike you with their hands? Punna, I will think, these Sunaparanta people are civilized, truly civilized, for they have not thrown clods of earth at me. Buddha, if they throw clods of earth? Punna, I will think, these Sunaparanta people are civilized, truly civilized, for they have not struck me with a stick. Buddha, if they strike you with a stick? Punna, I will think, these Sunaparanta people are civilized, truly civilized, for they have not struck me with a weapon. Buddha, if they strike you with a weapon? Punna, I will think, these Sunaparanta people are civilized, truly civilized, for they have not taken my life with a sharp weapon. Buddha, if they take your life with a sharp weapon? Punna, I will think, these Sunaparanta people are civilized, truly civilized, for with so little pain they have freed me from this body filled with filth.